Hi, and welcome to another fabulous edition of my criticism of the Twin Perfect doc. One of the things that was said in the Twin Perfect doc was that basically the fire had been started by a boiler because Alessa got upset and used her telekinetic powers to basically bust open a boiler out of defense for what the cult was doing for her during the ritual. There is a lot of problems with that. If we were to believe that story, there's a lot of holes in the story to indicate that that isn't true. The fire was definitely a key part of the Silent Hill storyline. And they said, not only did Twin Perfect say that the spoiler was a malfunction that caused the fire, they also said that it happened in the cellar or the basement. There's a lot of problems with that. That's not what official artwork depicts. It's not what Silent Hill Origins depicts, and you can't say Silent Hill Origins is less canon than Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3, or 4 because you don't like it. It just doesn't work that way. They use the reference for this for the Manifestations of Delusions article. First of all, if you look up the dictionary definition of delusion, it's a false belief or opinion. It's basically a false belief. When you're talking about Silent Hill and delusions, that occurs in a number of characters. With Alessa, it's about certain things in her childhood, like being bullied, and explains things like the lizard being in the other world. Silent Hill Official Guidebook, Complete Edition, mentions that the ritual process involved a great deal of fire, which consequently escalated into a conflagration. This would suggest that the fire was set intentionally, which is how we're all led to believe, more so than the boiler. If I recall, the boiler isn't even in every version of Silent Hill 1, because they're only using this memo as a basis for the fire, but it only occurs in Silent Hill 1 in certain versions, like the PAL version. It doesn't occur in all versions. Kind of curious if you think about it. Why wouldn't they put it in other versions if it's so important? Koshiki Guidebook says a lot of things. It hints at a lot of things that the fire was set intentionally, and the play novel backs this up. In the play novel, there's a dictionary that you find called the Close-Up of the Dictionary of Religious Science, and it has a couple of snippets that are curious if we're to believe that the boiler caused the fire. Just a little bit of excerpts from ancient times. The practice of offering a living sacrifice was the only way to avoid disaster. The other thing it talks about is, and this part really deals with Silent Hill 1 if we were to take into the account of the incubus. In the process of an altar set alight with a sacred flame and a symbol were required, which would make sense because in Silent Hill Origins it depicts the altar in which Alessa is found on to be a big halo of the sun. And if you play Silent Hill 3, if you look at the halo of the sun, Heather comments that it's from the altar. So she clearly remembers it, or it's in there with her as Alessa. It goes on to say, then by summoning an evil being and bringing it in contact with a saint, such as Alessa, a new existence is said to be created. If we think of the incubus as being the son of God as it was intended to be, or, the evil entity, obviously it's an incubus, it's a dream demon, coming in contact with the saint, and everybody knows the saint would be Alessa because she's obviously, somewhat divine because she's got weird powers, the new existence would have been God. And then it goes on to say, in the case the saint is not limited to a priest, as an inanimate object can be also used. Now, in Silent Hill 1, in the guidebook, it explains that Alessa was supposed to follow in the mediumship and the priesthood steps of Dahlia's, where Dahlia was in the order. So, she's basically in the priest case. Inanimate object, I think that expands later in Silent Hill 4 with you see the split off of the cult, but that's another story. The other problem with the boiler part is when you go, before you go and fight Leonard in Silent Hill 3, you get this curious memo that talks about solar deities. You know, it basically says, one characteristic mentioned only in rare documents and dying out in the modern age is that of ritual sacrifice. Offering prayers, pierce a man's chest with a copper stake, drench the altar in blood which sprouts red from the heart, to praise and show loyalty unto God. And another sacrificial rite mentioned in the same book, the victim is burned alive, just like Alessa. This was a more dignified ceremony in which prisoners and sinners were not allowed to participate. So if we think about it, if the victim is burned alive and sinners and prisoners are not allowed to participate, and we add up the fact that Alessa is supposed to be a priestess following her mother's footsteps into the order, and that she's holy and divine as a saint, we can come up with the synopsis that it's a pretty good bet that she was burned alive intentionally as a sacrifice to God to descend God. The memo goes on to say it may have some connection to the main deity being a sun god. This goes back to something Owaku had said about the religion of Silent Hill references various elements of different religions such as the origins of Christianity, Japanese folklore, and Aztec rituals. If he's basing it off of Aztec rituals, one of the things that the Aztecs did was they would sacrifice to the sun and they would rip out somebody's hearts, and these hearts were really important to the solar aspect of the sacrifice, which was it's not the same with other deities. It was mostly two-tone too. So you get this, and you add up all of this, plus there's some official pictures and so forth, including origins, depicting the fire being in a different location than what Twin Perfect had said. And there's even a Japanese guide that has the fire up and towards the attic area, or up towards the area on the second floor rather than in the cellar. Plus you have all these curious documents and everything talking about how Alessa was burned alive. I think it's pretty safe bet that there's no boiler involved. On top of that, the boiler memo seems to be a red herring because, as we know, Alessa's sacrifice was covered up, and it was covered up by Kaufman, who supplied a body according, I believe, to the play novel. It says that Kaufman supplied a body to make everybody think that Alessa had died when she had not. Then all the boiler is, all that memo is something they put into the media to explain the cause of the fire. It probably was not extensively investigated, especially with Kaufman saying, oh look, here's a dead body, this is Alessa, I have identified it. And then you can forge official documents. If you're wondering about the blue hair, it's not me trying to do the God of Thunder shirt. It's actually me trying to cosplay as Bulma, and it went horribly awry, so you're just gonna have to bear with it. It was for Halloween.